Hello, welcome to this section of Urban Manifesto. As you know, we've been bringing you this programming for the last year as the world went into various stages of lockdown and cities did not look like what they looked like before, and they were not the places that most people wanted to hang out. But cities are at the heart of what the future of the world looks like. It's where we will battle the biggest challenges that we face today, from poverty to equity to climate change. So in Urban Manifesto, we've been drawing priorities for policy and design for the future of urban life. And we've been especially interested in rethinking and reimagining our cities, to be more happier, equitable, and sustainable. And I'm so thrilled to bring this conversation to you again with my colleague, Lucy Bullivant. Lucy?
Well, thank you very much, Pratima. And let's go straight ahead. And today we are delighted to welcome as our guest Bien King. Now, Bien is the founder of Let's Reinvent, which is a London-based organization working to raise awareness and opportunities globally for women, youth, and people of color to thrive in tech. Bien worked as a program manager for the UK government-led Tech Nation Growth Platform for tech entrepreneurs, the Collective Global Accelerator supporting social entrepreneurs, and the International Debate Education Association. Bien is originally from Manila in the Philippines, and she lived in Beijing as a Chinese government scholar. She obtained her master's degree in international law from the China Foreign Affairs University, and whilst in China, she worked as a manager for Parkway Health and as a consultant for an EU trade mission to Southeast Asia. She's a certified Agile Scrum Master, which sounds absolutely amazing, and a project management professional. Bien is part of the World Economic Forum community in her capacity as a global shaper based in London. She's a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, a poet, a backpacker, and a marathon runner. So thank you for joining us today, Bien. It's a delight to see you with us. We are today focusing, as the title of our poster says, on Changemakers for a collective, inclusive society, which is really, this mission is really at the heart of the work that Bien does through her organization, Let's Reinvent. So let's hand over to her straight away to present her manifesto, as we always do with all our speakers. And then we'll kick off our conversation with her exploring all the key aspects of this very vital theme. Thanks, Bien, over to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Lucy, and also for Pratima for the very detailed description of what we are talking about today. And so without further ado, I'd like to share with you a short clip first to kind of share with everyone what we do at Let's Reinvent. And then after that, I will have to share with you like what would be my 3-point manifesto that I'd like to share to the audience of today's talk. So let me just play quickly a video about Let's Reinvent.
Hi, my name is Bien, and we at Let's Reinvent are
Changemakers.
Wherever we are, unconscious bias is deeply ingrained in our hearts and minds. We are dominated by binary ways of thinking. It's either black or white, good or bad, superior or inferior, us or them. These issues are within us, and so are the answers.
Powerhouse of Change, a blueprint to rediscover new, authentic human connections, to redefine our understanding of the collective, inclusive society, and to reinvent the way we think, talk, and work towards equality.
We bring social innovation through Game Changers Hive and Augmenta, leveling the playing field for everyone.
We catapult awareness and immersive experiences through Race to Equity, youth summits, and unidiversity.
And we champion our unique identities and intersectionalities through a series of our House of Change festivals.
Through our international community of changemakers, we will achieve our strategic objectives by continuously collecting relevant data to analyze trends, turning feedback into action, and measuring key metrics throughout every stage of program development.
Change is in the heart of what we do. We aim to look at not just the numbers, but the impacts of change in perspectives, insights, and behaviors. Join us in transforming people of color to become the powerhouse of change.
Right. So before I share with you the 3-point manifesto for today, I'd like to kind of talk about the topic that we have selected for this talk. So it is entitled Changemakers for a Collective Inclusive Society. And as you saw in the video, we at Let's Reinvent work with different organizations and individuals to build a collective inclusive society, not just in one city where we are based, but all over the world. And we believe that we are interconnected, and therefore we have an important role individually to be part of the society that we can build together so that we can live in a brighter, better future. So the first point that I'd like to make is that courage is the currency for a collective society. I'm sorry about that. So what do I mean by this? First and foremost, I speak from the youth perspective, and therefore I would like to speak about the need for every young person in the whole world to actually feel that they are part of the society, regardless of their background, regardless of their mission and ambitions in life. And so with this point, I actually believe that youth of today should have the courage to embrace the change, especially with the innovation and the changes brought by the technology, brought by uncertainty and ambiguity existing these days, such as the pandemic. And if we truly want to see the difference that we want to see in the world, for example, gender equity or reducing, like the effects of climate change. Therefore, we should take it into our own hands as to how we can affect the change and basically act on the actions or the tasks that must be done to address the challenges that we have in our communities. The second point that I'd like to make is that unlearning and relearning regenerative culture can break the cycle of neglect. I think on this perspective, I speak on behalf of everyone, especially to those who believe in global citizenship and in embracing what it means to be a human being. It's because change happened at a very rapid rate, and the way we work and interact with each other change, at the speed rate. And so there are things that we must unlearn, especially if it is promoting unhealthy cultures or, some conventional wisdom that may no longer be applicable in today's world. And secondly, relearning what would be the values and the suitable and sustainable culture that can generate the sense of hope, the sense of camaraderie, the sense of belongingness. And these values can actually break the cycle of neglect. Now, I speak, from personal point of view, because I grew up, in the Philippines. I lived in China, and I just realized, like, some culture or some practices that I may have hold dear to my heart, or what I believed was true, would also be true in different contexts that I've lived, but it's not the case. In fact, like, the critical part of community integration is learning how to adapt and learning how to understand what would be the best suitable course of action, or perhaps the best ways of interacting with others, so that we can live in harmony, so that we can support each other, and everyone within the community can thrive, and and be able to kind of not just tolerate each other, but actually enable each other to be the best versions of themselves. And the third point that I want to share with you as part of my my manifesto is that kindness is a critical human value we need in the tech-driven future. Now, as we all know, because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown, the way we connected with others have drastically shifted into online conversations. We're always, on Zoom. We're always, I would say, on Instagram or Facebook, etc. And so the polarization of I would say attention, or the perspectives that we show and share with others, may attract criticisms, or perhaps bullying, or perhaps untoward feedback or responses. And so it's really critical for us to always consider how we interact with each other. And what I really wanted for everyone, in who's listening or who's watching this, is that we have the personal responsibility to make sure that our words and actions are leaning towards kindness, rather than like criticism or destruction of of other people. It's because every single being has feelings, have emotions, have ego, or have some experiences that does not solicit untoward reactions, and therefore we always need to be very careful and uphold kindness, so that we know that we are lifting others up, not tearing others or each other down. And I think that this will be super relevant from today until in the future, because the shift from urban or city living have drastically changed. People are moving outside the city, and so the concept of modernism has definitely expanded, not just within cities, but literally everywhere. And so it's not just important to uphold, let's say, kindness in one or limited context, but rather it is a universal value that we should be upholding, regardless of where we are or who we converse, because mental health has become a major issue, and I would say not talked about so much. Maybe it's still a taboo in other contexts or other countries, but I guess in general, it's a basic human decency that we should strive to uphold. So those are the three key manifesto points that I would like to share with everyone. These are, I would say, like, not rocket science, right? Like, in fact, it's very basic, it's very achievable, and I guess this is something that we should strive to live to, to sustain and to uphold, regardless of what we do or who we are or what we aim to do. So yes, I'm gonna stop sharing now, so you can ask me any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Bien. That's a very profound scenario that you've set, and I'm very reassured personally that you think that it's all achievable. It's such a vital conversation to have at this particular point in time, because society, with societies transitioning out of lockdown, the scenarios that we have into this so-called new normal, which is unprecedented. I mean, and also a time of very heavily divisive forces coming from various sources. We have, as human beings, we've learned to adapt already in a very unprecedented way. And now this is the start of a new journey, a journey in which collaboration, trust, and reliance on others is going to be absolutely critical for us to evolve as a species and save the planet. So, Bien, Let's Reinvent's mission, as you said, it's to redefine our understanding of what a collective inclusive society is, and to, at the same time, reinvent the way in which we think, talk, and work towards social equality. So you and your team, you strive to overcome deeply ingrained unconscious bias, and at the same time, our domination by, what, as you put it, binary ways of thinking. So can you tell us how you perceive some of these barriers that are specifically holding back the advance of genuinely inclusive urbanism at this point, and how your strategy has developed in this respect since you founded Let's Reinvent?
First started Let's Reinvent, I thought about, who is it for and what we aim to do. And so for me, I've always loved working with young people. It's because, when I was young, I really appreciate the opportunities and the people who have influenced my personal development, and the process and the journey that I had to go through in order to find my own purpose and mission. And so when I founded Let's Reinvent, really the purpose for us is to empower more young people, to make them feel that they can create the change, and also provide the network so that they can seek the assistance or the guidance that they require if there's like any I would say challenges or struggles that they are going through. Talking about that, we at Let's Reinvent recognize that the age range of when a young person starts being immersed in the digital technology is becoming younger and younger. In fact, even my younger brother, who is 9 years younger than me, started being on internet by the age of like 4. Or maybe, babies are actually playing or watching, like videos through smartphones. And so we recognize that the context of today's world, especially for young people, is that they are heavily influenced, heavily exposed to the internet and to the social media. And we recognize that, because there's nobody, well, we assume that nobody controls the internet. Therefore, it can be like a chaotic place to kind of seek validation or seek the community that will accept you as a person. And therefore, like the social media that we use, the algorithms are created so that you can be hooked psychologically, and it's as if you'll never be off the screen again. And so it creates a certain polarization to validate your personal beliefs. And we think that it can also be used as a psychological warfare, like I don't want to go through so much details, but it's quite evident, let's say, social media can affect elections and predict like who will, let's say, win the next presidential election, let's say in the Philippines, from where I'm from. And social media causes like a big divide. Like there's an illusion that we are super connected, but also there on the other side of the coin, like we are also heavily divided. And so for us, these are just one angle, one of the barriers that we are like facing that holds us back to advance genuine inclusive urbanism, because we don't really engage with people who has a different point of view, because we might feel that we are attacked or criticized, or like we don't feel validated, and that's a very basic human nature in us. And so for us at Let's Reinvent, regardless of the points of views, we tend to find individuals, collaborators, partners who can fill the gaps, especially in skills or network, and find ways to work together so that we can reach out to different segments of the society, especially those who are from the underrepresented backgrounds, because they are the sector that is heavily affected by social issues in the world today. And let's say for me, I come from Asia. I've never been in Europe, before I moved to London, and so I have different points of views, and I was just so lucky that I was able to find a network that would accept me, that would allow me to show who I am, regardless of the differences, or like my, regardless of like what my point of views are. And so I would want to replicate that kind of opportunity for many other young people, so that they don't feel like the need to get the validation from hyper polarized online networks, and that we can really achieve a genuine human connection with people, regardless of whether they have different points of views. And I think for me, inclusive urbanism would mean that, I think in simple terms, you just have this sense of belongingness, even if you've never lived in that community before. It's that opportunity to feel welcome, to feel appreciated, to have the space or platform where you can thrive, and a space that you think that you are being trusted, and you're just given the opportunity to maximize the potential, and also be given the opportunity to give back to the society, regardless of like what were your previous experiences or backgrounds is.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fundamental what you've spelled out, that irrespective of our cultural background, that we can find sense of belonging within these circles of connections, which at the same time facilitate lifelong learning, and above all, also a sense of criticality about these complex relationships that between tech and human relationships, society, and the digital and the physical, and so on. Because those of us who can buy plenty of academic textbooks and critiques about this topic can get some kind of awareness of the nature of different behaviors that are being propagated by tech companies and governments working together, and putting in barriers but taking out other ones that we really need. But to actually become part of a circle of trust is, I think, as you say, it's really, really important. So, Pratima, what is your next question?
Pian, at Let's Reinvent, one of the big things you're doing, other than creating that, camaraderie and this collective sense of belonging, is that you are creating an ecosystem of change makers, for various things. But I know that there's been a huge focus on climate action. So talk to me a little bit about that, creating this ecosystem of change makers or public problem solvers. What role does grassroots innovations and innovation ecosystems play in tackling the big crises that we are kind of facing today, whether it is climate change or inclusion?
Yes, thank you so much for that question, Pratima. And yes, sustainability and climate action, especially among young people, is one of the fundamental program and priorities we have at Let's Reinvent. And our flagship program was in collaboration with Youth for Our Planet, with the organizations such as the WWF UK, Low Carbon City in Colombia, and World Coalition in the US. And we created an online course for change makers. And so basically what we wanted to do is to prove that you do not have to have a background in climate change to join the movement. It's as simple as that. And what is interesting is that, I always have said that, I'm not an expert in climate change. I'll never be like a leader in the field. However, as I look back, actually, climate action is embedded to many different activities that we do in our work, in our private lives, right? Like, for example, when I was a student, I would join, let's say, competitions or activities at school that is actually promoting climate change. And I guess it's just, I would say, unconscious that I believe that, well, that was just, like a part of school life, but actually the influence of those activities are quite monumental in terms of how I do work. For example, when I run programs for the previous organizations that I worked for, like one of the KPIs would be to make sure that the products or the outputs that we produce are sustainable or something that offsets the carbon footprint that we generate. Or it could be in terms of making sure that, like a lot of, I would say, unused materials are recycled. Like these are just unconscious behaviors that becomes quite automatic. Like I don't think about it, but actually these small actions, if we do it together, we do it collectively, then we can create a collective impact. The online course also tackles about what are the essential skills and also the fundamental knowledge that a young person needs to become a change maker. And my realization when we have created the online course for our ecosystem of change makers is that the skills, the knowledge are super replicable across any industries. Because if you are, creating a campaign, let's say, for example, for a tree planting initiative or an ocean cleanup, then you need, let's say, social media skills, or you need networking skills, or you need communication skills. And that is so similar to the other projects that you can possibly run. And so it is quite a misconception that if you do not have a background in climate change, then you cannot be involved in the climate action, because that's completely wrong. Like every single one of us have the potential, have the skill, have the foundation to actually be part of the movement. And it's just for us, like we serve as the catalyst, we serve as, like that organization that provides the wake-up call for the young people that, hey, you do not have to to feel validated. Like, in fact, you already know what to do. I guess for us, like, it's really a call for action, like creating the tangible steps or examples of what they can follow, so that we can multiply, the impact that is being created at every level of our society. And we think in terms of, ensuring how the cities are sustainable and equitable. I would say there's no simple solution to that, because I'd like to reiterate that every single one of us has a responsibility to do, or to hold. And we believe that active citizenship among young people is actually, I would say it's multi-dimensional. It really depends on what you feel comfortable doing, or what kind of, how do you see yourself being part of the solution. I think the grassroots innovation doesn't have to be like to feel forced. I think if we are open to to new learnings, or how we can make our skills a transferable one, so that we can kind of like redirect it, so that we can be more active in promoting climate action, then I think we are doing our part. Like, it doesn't have to be a very big gestures. I think it's being more conscious, being more I would say, like, be more critical in the simple behaviors that we do in our life that can collectively create an impact in the world. I think there's a lot of documentaries on Netflix, and I actually enjoy them. And I think if we are just really curious and really dedicated into seeing like what other actions we can do, there's tons of resources online, not just us at Let's Reinvent, that can easily create like a guideline of how we can activate the citizens, or anyone, any young person across the globe to join the movement.
Those are fascinating points, Bian. I think it's so simple, but it's just so important. The message that you just kind of shared with us, which is that a lot of the big challenges that we face, the solution, it's not really rocket science. It's just a lot of us changing how we do things, maybe, and some of it is very simple and everyday. And I love this message, and I think it's I think the work of, in a way, training change makers, kind of training young people to understand that the power that they hold, the power of citizenship. I think that's fascinating, and I actually did look through some of the training programs that you had, and it was simple things about communication and storytelling, and building a movement. And I think it's so much more powerful. I mean, somebody once said it's not rocket science, really. Most of these problems, the solutions for them are not really technical. It's more political, and you're kind of tackling that. I'm really excited to learn more about it. Thank you for sharing that. Lucy?
Yeah, and Bien, I absolutely echo what Pratham has said. I think one of your many strong points is the fact that you are stressing the value of authentic leadership for the 21st century. I mean, we tend to associate the concept of leadership with something that's very top down and individualistic. But authentic leadership in the 21st century is very much about connected thinking and taking personal responsibility and being, with people and authentic, true to yourself, but together working with other people. And the other thing I really love is the fact that you're breaking all the silos, the idea that knowledge, as it was in the past, particularly for planning, was kept in silos, and so that solutions to cities were carried out through the silos, but not in a holistic, joined up way. And you really are transcending that paradigm in your approach. So we need to, because you're almost like a polymath, we can ask you a question about anything. It's really vital we talk about economies. So it's very clear that economies are simply not working for so many people and places. And since you've been so closely involved with entrepreneurialism, I want to ask you this one. Also because you're a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, and 2 years ago they released a report, Inclusive Growth in Action, and in it they described this image of a very progressive municipalism which has been emerging across the world. They say, I've seen evidence of it, drawing together civic, business and community actors. And it is here that the Royal Society of Arts says that inclusive growth is really taking root and the seeds for a new type of economy are being planted. So what do you think are some of the ways in which institutions and citizens can work together to put people at the heart of an inclusive economy, which, by the way, could be for a neighborhood, a microeconomy incubated within a neighborhood of community members?
Yes, I actually love this topic because I think, I've been exposed to various environments. Like I've worked for governments, for corporates, for NGOs, academia, the military in the Philippines, and also like getting exposure in different, like cities and ways of working. And so this is like very close to my heart. Like, how do we transform the economy and the society so that it can be more inclusive for different kinds of people? I would say that organizations have one thing. Organizations have goals in place, and there's strategic planning, there's setting of the OKRs, KPIs, like regardless of the industry, like that's, number one thing to expect. And so most of the times, the goals can be quite inflexible to maybe changes or to, let's say, medium term like solutions. And so that might be the reason why it's quite difficult to adjust to the changing needs of the people, especially those from underrepresented groups. It's because it's not aligned to the organizational goals of the companies or institutions. The second one is that, like we don't think about organizations as a black box, like they have certain like dynamics or certain characteristics, because every organization has different like cultures or different strengths and weaknesses. But what I observe is that a lot of organizations tend to have the programs, but the execution can be different. Like there's always a struggle to connecting the grassroots level. I guess I would say like even those organizations with years of existence in the field can still struggle to connect to their target audience. And that is quite apparent even, with government, with international NGOs. Like it's really tough to make a difference in the people who need they're helped the most. And so I think, having said that, I think it's a very classic dilemma, I would say. Like, even for us at Let's Reinvent, like, to be completely open, it's like it's an everyday, challenge as to how we can make sure that we are really creating an impactful work to the people who needs it the most. If we flip the coin and talk about the other actor in this conversation, which is the citizens, which are the people who needs it the most. If you look at if you look at this actor, I would say that, well, everybody has needs, and first and foremost, like, they would look for those opportunities that can pay the bills, something that can provide meals to the table, support the family, etc. And so it's not easy for many, those who are from the less privileged background, to actually join the conversation, to be an active part of the community. And that really widens the divide and the inaccessibility of the opportunities actually available to them. Well, I guess speaking, from experience, like, I had the same thing even back in the Philippines, or even in China, or even here. Like, when I started, like, there's always the constant fear of, like, I don't have the necessary skills, I don't have anything to offer. Like, there's a lot of, like, nagging insecurities, like, surrounding you. And if you cannot get past that, then it's going to be really difficult to have a meaningful interaction with the organizations who offers the support or the platform that you need to thrive. I think individually, on an individual level, especially for change makers, for organizations, I would say this is what I have believed. It's really tough to change the game if you're not in the game. So for me, like, I used to work for the government, and, well, in the Philippines, and I quite disliked it because of the bureaucracy, the red tape, like the slow pace of change, of the political, like, what do they call this, like circus happening. It's just really difficult, and it really stressed me out. And so I left the country because I cannot bear the stress. Like, that was not a conducive environment for me to thrive. But then looking back, like, 10 years now, like, I just realized, like, so how do I plan to make change from in the Philippines, from where I came from, if I'm not even there, if I'm not in the game, right? So I think that's the fundamental thing. Like, if we want to make something truly inclusive, then we should be addressing the bottlenecks as to how do we make these opportunities, these platforms, more accessible to our target audience, and to make sure that we are monitoring the impact and like the sustainability, so that we can break the cycle of neglect, of like disengagement or mismatch of our goals and priorities. I think last thing is that there's a lot of initiatives. In fact, even in the Philippines, like, there's a lot of amazing laws, like almost perfect. But the reality is that it's like it feels broken, like it's not really working. I think no matter the project is, like, regardless of who made it, how was it made, how much resources was spent, but if we cannot really make a real, genuine impact on the lives of the people, then yeah, regardless of how perfect the project is or how much resources have we spent building, the blocks to make it like a robust program, like, it's not gonna be really, I would say, like, worth it, or I don't know. It's hard to say, right? Like, yeah, I guess it really boils down to how do we make sure that organizations, individuals have more aligned I would say engagement, so that we know that that we are making a true difference in the economy, in the society, and make sure that the growth, the development are very inclusive to all segments and subgroups of the society.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also think I'm always continually amazed at how many wonderful socially committed collectives there are around the world. But I think it is very much a question of redefining the sites of power around and within, at the heart of community living. So, on your high street, more mutual aid societies, new program functions, new social enterprises popping up, new tools, new platforms created by the people, and definitely they don't do that in a grassroots way, completely distanced from top-down organizations. They work with the top-down, as you say, stay in the game, to actually get the top-down organizations to become more flexible, to give them leverage so they can build up. So we have thereby a more equitable society. Prathima, let's try and get one more round of questions in, shall we?
Yes, I think I want to kind of push a little bit about that. I think this pandemic has especially highlighted, the glaring inequities within our society, from health to education. I think it's really kind of starkly shown us the inequalities within neighborhoods in our cities. I think, like someone said, we are all in the same storm, but we are all not in the same boat. And I think that's been really revealed in the last year because of this pandemic, which has really, really stressed the system. So, I know you do a lot of future casting and future visioning. So how should we, kind of, how will that, how should we think about this, as we kind of get out of this pandemic and enter the new era? How do we kind of build, the new society and new infrastructure to be more inclusive and, sustainable?
Yeah, thank you, Pratima. I mean, that might be the hardest question of all. For starters, like, there's no one size fits all solution, right? Like,
yeah,
every country, or every community have different amount of resources or priorities or strategies, and people within those organizations and those who are in leadership has different skill sets or different perspectives, and I feel that, again, there's no one size fits all. Really depends on the ratio or the things or the people that composes the community. Having said that, to me, my personal experience would be, it was actually great to have the access to public spaces. When the pandemic hit, I was living here in London, and we live very close to the Thames river, and so we do our daily walks by the river, and it kind of made us realize how important the little things are and what makes us human, and what really is the most important thing to us, and that is our family, our friends, and our life's purpose, and also reflecting on our the great things that makes who we are, and the challenges that we faced and succeeded. I think those are very important. However, I think I speak in a place of privilege that I was able to do that. My family in the Philippines, I would say they did not have the similar access to, let's say, spaces. Like for example, in Manila, the only way you can actually exercise or go out is when you go to a mall. Like parks are not, or even walks by the river can be a privilege. Like yeah, it's really planned for an urban community. And so I do have families or cousins who died because of like the lack of access to good public spaces, blue green spaces. And so I think it's important that we are making sure that we are really taking good care of the needs of the people, not just the financial needs, because obviously number one goal is to make sure that the economy is is sustainable, so that we can feed our families, send the kids to school, and make sure that we have some resources to pay the bills, etc. But a lot of the fundamental needs of human beings are quite neglected. Like it could be the physical part or the psychological and emotional part, and not feeling the sense of support or a strong support system around you can really make or break a person, especially those who are suffering, let's say, from, it could be domestic violence, it could be isolation, depression, and a lot of other things. Like people really have needs, and it can be a serious matter of like life and death. And so it's a really tough question, I would say. I wouldn't necessarily have the questions, or if there is an answer, then it would be really subjective as to what kind of community we're talking about. I think it's really a matter also of being an ally, or being someone who can be there for others. Like during the pandemic, like I was one of those people who were always on social media saying hi to people, making sure that you check in with your friends, family, to be a support system for them. It's also like a give and take relationship, and like that kind of urbanism or modern living it has become more present digitally. And so I think the resilience part from my end really came from my ability to be online, to have the access to the internet, to social media, to check on my family, and having like the strong support system around me, and the spaces where I can also like get my mind off, be away from home for a time, because it really boosted the health benefits and the psychological aspect of my being. What can we do to ensure the future infrastructure is inclusive? I think number one, like let's say the UK government, like I think it's like we are in a very incredible society where there's tons of support and opportunities that can be accessible to everyone, and there's a lot of like organizations working together to make sure that no one is left behind. But from, let's say, the infrastructure perspective, I would say that maybe the development doesn't just end within the cities. Like the concept of urbanism have just expanded, and it's like there's no borders anymore. Like the sense of urbanism can be anywhere as long as you have internet. And so I think it has been quite of a shift, right? Like we just need to make sure that we have the access to the internet, to social media, so that we feel that we are still being part of the progress of the developments, and that we can also voice out our opinion, regardless of we are not in the location where the decision making is happening. yeah, I think, the infrastructure should be improved, like, let's say, even in rural places, in those places which are not traditionally where people go to work. Because I think now the world has shifted. The opportunities or the work can be done anywhere. And so the infrastructure should be improved across all kinds of areas, so that like it's the development is more like horizontal instead of like vertical development in the cities.
Yeah. Lucy?
Oh, well, yes, I was going to add, you're absolutely spot on about the, let's say, the more nomadic nature of urbanism as a concept, the new relationships, because it's not only Rem Koolhaas who's so focused now on the countryside, so many other thinkers. And at a webinar I was at just yesterday, they were pointing out with all the new retrofitting that has to be done of existing buildings in order to make them able to deal with the emissions in a reduced way, that the insulation cannot be like a product like rock wool, because that's distinctly ungreen, that it has to be nature waste or nature-based materials coming from the countryside, which actually puts the onus on the change of countryside farming agricultural practices, and also our own food production. I'm thinking because we may have food shortages here in the UK because of the lack of haulage drivers. But we're going off on a tangent here. But that's the nature of this incredibly holistic conversation, that we, you make connections, and there are more and more exciting and stimulating ones. I would like to, oh yes, I was going to ask Pathima if you would see if there were any audience questions at this point. Sometimes people are just very happy to take on board everything we say and the guests' comments, and other times they have lots of questions. But
yeah, I think I just want to welcome everybody to the Urban Manifesto community that joins us regularly as we have these important dialogues. And if you do have any questions for us, please share it in a comment below, or even if you have comments, we'd love to hear from you. So yeah, Lucy, go ahead.
Yeah. So while we're waiting, just in case there is one or two, let me have a look at what else we had lined up for questions. Bien, I always like asking big questions, but maybe it's possible to answer this one quite quickly. Because during lockdown, we've all become very regular users of tech, whether it's Zoom or TikTok. And quite a few people around the world have been engaging with AR and VR during lockdown, which is it does help overcome isolation, because these two new modes of storytelling and creative expression bring the outside world in. And now we're more able to go into public spaces. Also, the impact of AR and VR is felt there. So let's reinvent when it comes to tech. You have a very strong social mission. Can you spell out for us, say we knew nothing about Let's Reinvent at all, how can your approach to tech and the workshops actually help improve regenerative culture? I mean, we have to regenerate culture, right? So what is your particular angle on the agency of tech that you're trying to stress?
Well, we believe that in every activity or programs that we have at TechNation, we make sure that we have digital technology to back it up. And especially during the pandemic, the most effective and potent way for us to connect with our community, especially among young people, is through technology like Zoom. And one of the programs that we run, like earlier this year, was the Articulate program. It was a cross-cultural program for young artists here in the UK and across ASEAN. And we meet every 2 weeks, and we provide opportunity for creative or artistic mentors to deliver an art master class, and also have the opportunity for the young people to collaborate together, through breakout sessions, so that they can have an expanded understanding of the differences and the similarities of cultures. And for us, indirectly, here in the UK, or maybe it's more prevalent in the US, like because of the pandemic, it kind of created the surge in hate crimes against Asians. And so we thought that Articulate was actually a perfect program for us to spark the conversations and collaborations and understanding of cultures, between the UK and ASEAN region, to have a more immersed, I would say, experience and exposure, because these hate crimes, this like radicalization, stems from mostly ignorance or lack of exposure. And so if we provide those exposures early on for the young people, then they can be more accepting of like the differences in the cultures and points of views. And also, like, it promotes like healthier conversations and a more robust collaboration. After the series of the workshops, we did launch a virtual reality version of the collaborative artworks created by the young artists from the UK and ASEAN, and also the ebook version. I guess it's for us, like, we really had to just maximize the accessibility of internet to still provide these opportunities for young people, because we believe that we have the responsibility to make sure that the young people are given aspirations, platforms, so that they can thrive. They can be, they can inherit, like the leadership and the ability to change the world. And so for us, it was very critical, and we are very, I would say, happy with the results, because we did not just empower them to improve their technical skills in painting or in visual arts, but rather we also focused on how their artworks can make a difference in their local community. So there's this multiplier effect, and it's not going to be possible without the use of technology. So I guess, to that point, technology it's a great solution, I would say, to connect individuals regardless of where they are, and it's easy to replicate or to scale. And we look forward to continuing our work to empower more people, young people in particular, so that we know that we are sustaining the cycle of like creating the next leaders of and change makers of today and tomorrow.
I think that's such an amazing vision to have, Bian, and I'm going to actually reach out to you and figure out ways to collaborate, because I think it's just super inspiring, and I think we do need to create a world of change makers to make change happen. And I really want to thank you for joining us for this conversation, and I also want to thank the wider community for joining us this evening. And stay safe and stay well. Lucy, final words?
Thank you so much, Bien. It's wonderful to have this kind of exposure to your very socially inclusive philosophy and your practical principles, because we can sit together in rooms and talk about these things, but ultimately you are an activist. That is very, very patently obvious, and you have things of value for absolutely everybody in society, because we all need empowerment in different ways, and we all need to be thinking of continual lifelong learning, evolving the tools that we have, inventing new tools. Let's reinvent. This is the moment of reinvention, and for so many reasons. If we fail to take on this challenge to the extent that it's needed, we could be sitting here in 10 years' time completely depressed at what has been, the failures that we saw the potential, but we didn't grasp it. So, yeah, you're working at such an exciting and intrepid time, and I really would personally love to collaborate with you. I'm sure we can do some work together.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Let's do it. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody, for